All right, I'll go ahead and call the Nottingham Planning Board meeting for Wednesday, April 24th, 2024 to order. Before we begin, I'll just go around the room and have everyone introduce ourselves, starting on my right.
Robert Davies, alternate.
Skip Severance.
Chris Evans.
John Moran.
Teresa Bascom.
Edward Veal.
Drew Stevens.
Doug Cummings.
Blair Haney, SRPC.
So the point of tonight is it's more of a non-business type of night, kind of a workshop for us to catch up on or get a start on some housekeeping items. So we've got a few items that we've listed out to start tackling and to get some headway on and make a plan for moving forward. So we can go in order, but before we begin, does anybody on the board have any questions on any of these, or I'll just jump into them in order?
I do have a question. Are we not supposed to talk about something that is involved, like another project if the people aren't here?
Yeah, so anything that's case specific, we can't speak about without the applicant being present in a notice public hearing. So, yeah, anything that's already been approved and signed and has already occurred, that's fair game. But anything that's pending or before us, yeah, we cannot speak about.
Do we ever on some unmentioned case, I just saw this note about things, let's say we got an engineering report about something that we need to talk about for the next meeting. Do we just wait till the next meeting?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Check.
Yeah,
Thank you.
of course. So the first item we had on here was review and sign the bylaws. We discussed those a couple of meetings ago. In the past, we've always kind of re-signed those every year and readopted them, either amending them and readopting or just readopting, just to make sure that everybody understands, our bylaws and our rules of procedure that we adhere by. So does anybody have any questions on those? Any amendments they'd like to make?
Ed, you've been here, you're the senior authority here. What do you see as glitchy things that need to be taken care of and all that?
In the bylaws we've gone through, and I'll defer to Mrs. Baskin as well, in the bylaws, I think we've gone through them pretty well in the past. It's just kind of our rule of procedure. The only thing I'd mentioned at the prior meeting was, in the past, all three officers, chair, vice chair, and secretary, had the potential to chair the meeting without a vote from the board, meaning if either I wasn't here, the chair wasn't here, vice chair wasn't there, and the secretary was, the secretary could open the meeting and chair the meeting without needing the rest of the board to nominate them to be the chair that night. That was taken out previously. I would say consider putting that back in at the will of the board. That avoids that potential issue.
Should we make a
And
motion?
that
for
person could
effect?
always appoint a different chair that night. Like if the secretary was uncomfortable with the case or had to recuse, they could always appoint
And
a
that
different
was
chair.
done last year.
Yeah,
It's like, I don't want this, you can take it.
yeah.
Like, okay.
So that would be my only suggestion.
So should we make a motion for that to act
Yes,
upon
so did you
that
want
now
the
and
meeting
just get that up, knocked
I
out?
would chair it.
So that is under, I believe it's Article 3, Officers and Their Duties, Section
But those-
6, yep.
Sounds like you got this one.
Section 5 and 6. So the verbiage would more mimic Section 4,
Oh,
and then Section 6 would be amended to include the secretary.
yeah, I was questioning why section 4 kind of exists, and then section 5 kind of exists. And then having section 6, it indicates the absence of any one of those, minus the secretary. It seemed like that section needed to be reworked if we wanted to add, well, the secretary, section 5 I have as the secretary shall also perform such duties as required by the planning board, such as taking minutes in the absence of the land use clerk. It doesn't indicate that they would be, that they could become chairman in that particular one, but in section 6, if we added secretary in there if required, or something like that.
Yeah, so that's where it was before. It was in section 5 and 6 before. It was just removed last year. It was, the individual that was nominated as secretary or agreed to step into that role, really didn't want to, be chairing meetings as much as possible. So we amended it kind of because of that.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just looking at section 4 and 5 and wondering if they also need to be, whether, well, does the phrase, "the vice chairman shall also perform such duties as required by the planning board," does that allow them the capability to be chair? If section 6 is there? I think yes. And then if that's the case, section 5 is okay also for the secretary, if you add in secretary under section 6.
Yeah,
Yeah?
I'm fine with however we want to
Okay.
word that, as long as it accomplishes the same thing. If it shortens this a little bit, it's totally fine by me. So do you have any kind of, how you propose that verbiage? So you're saying eliminate 4 and 5 and incorporate that verbiage kind of
No,
into
I'm
6?
saying 4 and 5 is fine as they are.
Okay.
As long as the intent of shall also perform such duties as required by the planning board includes being chairperson or vice chair, or however it works. I think it does.
So you're saying we don't need to add the secretary back in?
No, I'm saying in section 6, which is basically the section that provides for the capability of an absence,
Right?
that it should say chairperson, comma, vice chairperson, and secretary, or secretary, I guess. Absence
Yeah, and so,
of,
You
and,
know-
yeah. The planning board members present, by majority vote, they select an acting chairman.
I think instead of it saying the planning board members present, it should say the secretary may act as acting chairperson or may assume the duties of chair.
No, this is in case they're, all three are
My
gone.
3 extra weeks of seniority over you guys.
yeah, so you're saying, in the absence of the chairperson, vice chairperson, and secretary, the planning board members present by majority vote of quorum may select an acting chairperson until such time as chairperson, vice chairperson, and secretary.
That's only,
Or-
well, 4, 5 if Buzz is here.
So you have a quorum with 4, if you have such a thing.
Yep.
So the capability exists to elect one of them to be chair for the night.
I think we need to make sure,
Ideally, that should happen very, very, very
Yeah.
rarely, if ever, but
Yeah.
to cover that instance where, yeah, you have a quorum, but you don't have enough people to open the meeting and.
right,
So,
So I'll make a motion if you like.
sure.
To add it to change chairperson and vice chairperson to chairperson, comma, vice chairperson. I usually use a comma there, and secretary, but, and then continue on.
This is section 6.
Yes.
second.
And then, well, I'm sorry, and then you'd have to add it again a little bit further in that sentence where, until such time as chairperson or vice chairperson or secretary are again present.
So one way we can fix this, and I'll back off on my thing.
Put in the officers.
My motion is to just call it the officers.
That works too.
I read your mind. That's scary.
It would tend to be. And then change officers throughout that same paragraph.
All right, so you're amending your motion to read,
To take
The
out
absence of
chairperson and
the
vice
officers.
chairperson throughout that whole section 6.
Yep.
And use the term officers
got it.
as appropriate. I mean,
And Ms. Bascom, do you second that amendment?
I do.
So you have amendment by Mr. Severance, a second by Mrs. Bascom to amend section 6 of Article 3 of the bylaws. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries 7-0. And I failed to mention earlier, since we do have a full board tonight, Mr. Davies is participating fully as an alternate, but just won't be taking part in any votes. But we'll have full, we'll be taking full part in everything else, in all discussions. All right.
I have a question.
Yep.
Under Article 1, Section 5, it says a listing shall be provided that denotes dates amended with a listing of each date it was amended. We don't presently have that now, but there could be any number of good reasons for that.
It's strange. We put it, it goes in the back. So we have the amended dates on the cover sheet, and then at the back on the signature page, we've got adopted dates.
Need adopted, yeah, at the,
Oh, and the whole string, I
Yep.
see, okay, that's.
So I think we would put the amended date on this one if, it'd go under that other amended date, and then
Okay.
there'd be a new adopted date.
Good catch. That answers that one.
yeah,
Yeah. And if this ever gets too tedious, I would just say the board would vote to rescind the entire bylaws and then re-adopt new bylaws, and then
Right.
you would have a clean slate.
And then it would have a new adopted date and
Yeah.
amended after that. Yep, okay.
Any other questions in the bylaws?
I have a question that I don't know where it came from, except it is in the RSA's.
Sure.
I love this, John. That,
Why?
Because you
that a
can.
planning board member can be removed by action of the select board. That seems weird to me, but it's in the RSA. Seems like the board has the capability to do that, the planning board.
Yeah, I think we do. I think there's two possible removal options, under that RSA.
Well, at RSA number, the one thing, whatever, 673.13 and then the one,
Yep.
that talks about what he or she can be removed for. And then the two, kind of like, that's almost word for word.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of that before. I don't know where it came from, except it's in the RSA. Okay. Do we,
That says for appointed members, though.
but you appointed me, not the selectmen.
Correct. But what, I was
Well, I'm
looking, no, I would,
Sorry.
for anybody that was voted in by the townspeople, there would have to be some other way of looking at this, but somebody who is appointed to fill a vacancy could be removed by the appointing authority, AKA the BOS. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I'm in Article 7.
Which is funny, 'cause they're not.
It talks about planning board members. It doesn't get into specifics as to how you got here.
Five,
What's
six,
that?
7.
When you spoke to the people on last case, last week. If you spoke to.
Article 7, Section 2, where,
Yes.
but it's saying for those who've missed 3 or more consecutive meetings without notifying
Correct.
land use clerk.
Yeah.
oh, yeah,
Do you understand what I'm saying?
yes, yes.
No worries, but just future.
Maybe subject to action of the select board, removal by action of the select. board.
I did do that with
Just
Uh,
a-
Here at the office.
Yeah.
We called together.
I don't know where, how this fits in there
Yeah,
for
right.
that.
Well,
It's-
it's in there.
I know, but what I'm saying is 673.13, number,
It just seemed weird to me,
Two.
that's all.
well, it says for any cause enumerated in paragraph 1.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't want to get in the weeds too much on that, since it's obviously,
No.
the RSA is the state, and that's one of those ones that's handed down to us as to,
Yeah.
what our authority is, so.
Let's all do nothing that
Yes,
occurs.
that's, if we,
Let's be friendly, nice.
thankfully, we have not had to
I don't
pursue
know
that.
that I've ever seen anybody being removed.
I never even knew this was in this one.
begging people to come and be on the board.
Asked to read it, I read it.
Well, I do
I
have,
thought, wow,
Don't be wishing for something, okay?
not trying to.
I do have some ideas for changing the ordinance, which, you know, you guys might go, what are you thinking?
Ordinance?
Yeah, for the
Yeah.
subdivision.
Yeah.
Well, we've got the subdivision yet.
I know, I'm just saying, when we get to that, you guys might go, get out of here.
Well, we'll tell you how we feel. Don't worry about that.
And then, from page 7 on, it seems that paragraphs are written inconsistently, and I can understand why. Basically, the way in which, where things are posted, at the top of the page, it talks about at the town hall, one of the places, and then at least two,
Top of
One
page,
of
which
which.
page? Okay,
page 7.
yep.
And then, I think it's further on page 9, under Article 12, Section 2 in the middle, it says, in at least 2 public places, in accordance with RSA 676. But it doesn't say town hall there. I think.
You mean like one of which should be the town hall?
Yeah, one of which, just write it consistently somehow. And I'm not sure what's appropriate, I just,
Well, now, here's a question for you, when they say all public places. Because, I mean, again, written on here, would the town website be considered a public place?
yes,
That's been qualified before, yeah.
There's your
Yeah.
public place, and then the one that we keep outside the planning board, there's your 2 spots. But actually, you're talking about location, like,
I'm just saying.
we should not have, actually, I don't think, written a physical location, it should just be 2 public places, stop, keep it
Whatever
plain.
consistent word verbiage would be.
Right, just-
If it happens to be in accordance with 676, whatever, which doesn't tend to tell the normal people anything.
Right.
You know, I like the phrase town hall is one, but if the other one is the website, seems like it should be the town hall and the website. That's where you're gonna go to look.
People do look at the one at the post office that hangs up. I've seen
Yeah.
people standing there looking at them.
Yeah, that's why I haven't stopped putting it there, because I don't need to put it there, but we just have always done that, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
we'll still do it.
Yeah,
Google
I see what you're
right
saying, so
Feel like
under
we should do it.
page 6
Well,
or
they used to go to
7.
West Nottingham too, but. No, they always did. But anyway, that was, whatever it is, it seems like it should be written consistently so people know what it is, where to go.
Well, if the RSA doesn't specify that it needs to be town hall, we should just take out the line that says one of which is the town hall, right? Because posting it in the town hall and the post office and on the website, 3 places, so we're, you know, it's covered either way.
And the
And I mean, it'll be posted at the town hall no matter what,
Right, but
so.
the town hall's not specific, where you could post it in the office, it could be posted in the front hallway, it could be posted down by the board. We don't say where, so it's like a.
Put this one in the bathroom.
Again, so, I mean, I just think the bold statement, 2 places.
Yep.
Yeah,
And that's fine.
so section 6 of Article 8,
Yep.
page 7 currently, just strike that last sentence, that last, after the comma, one of which is the town hall. So it end at public places. And I don't think we need to make an amendment each time unless the board feels that way, but I think we can go through and if there's any other changes, catch them all. The only, I had a very minor change, it's under Article 12, Section 2, it's just a extra word, return receipt requested mail at least, and then strike than 10 days before. And I did, speaking of that, I can't remember if I mentioned it at the last meeting, or I think I talked to someone since then. We had a discussion about certified mail and the cost, so the cost is borne by the applicant anyway, and it's, the return receipt is, I think is required, it is kind of the standard with other towns. there's another way to do it. You can get it electronically versus, like, the town get it electronically back instead of, the actual, like, paper copies, which saves you like 60 cents or something, but it's, or $2 or saves $1 or so. But the return receipt, either by physical receipt or, e-receipt is still kind of the standard on the certified mail. And again, that's a cost that is specifically borne by the applicants anyway. That just reminded me of it.
And my last comment is on section 12, or Article 12, section G, H, I, and J. They don't seem to be in the right order, but maybe they are. You give a person the capability to speak for the matter. And then the applicant or agent shall be called to present the proposal, and those appearing in favor of the proposal shall be allowed to speak, and then those in opposition. So, and then those in neither in favor nor in opposition, so to speak.
You don't think G, H, and I is incorrect?
I see what you're
I
saying.
don't
No,
know
you're saying
that
the
it is or
order.
not. I got confused by the agent presents on G. And those appearing in favor of the proposal shall be allowed to speak. It seems like that's what happens in H. Is that true?
Oh, okay, I get you what you're saying now.
Is that after the meeting is opened, or is that just, to the public? Is that public or other people,
Normal.
in conjunction with the applicant?
Normal procedure is we hear the application, the guy sits there, talks like this, and then afterwards they're done. We ask if anybody who that's in favor of the application to come up, and then we ask, after they're done, we say, is anybody in opposition, wants to come up? It's just the roll call of how it's.
Right. So
But
maybe
if it
that
was-
should be a new H, I guess.
Or H could go in there, those
Yeah.
opposed, it doesn't matter if we have which way it goes, I don't think, if you're opposed or you're
Well-
in favor of who goes first.
Well,
It's
No,
just the way
but-
we've always done it.
correct.
G should be split up, I think is what you're saying. So,
Yeah, G should be
because the
split
next
up.
part is when the public hearing piece is
Opens.
open
Correct.
and the applicant steps away. So, and even the agent, I think we call it, I think we change it to applicant's
Applicant.
representative or their representative, designated representative.
Say that again?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
It says agent or counsel right in there, Marty.
Under G, the applicant or agent shall be called to present.
Oh,
I'm just
agent
saying,
or
I think
applicant or
instead of agent, I
representative.
think we call it, so applicant or their designated representative. It's just being a little bit more consistent with our own,
Yeah, just,
things now, and then split the end of G, so we're gonna add a letter. Those appearing in favor of the proposal shall be allowed to speak, and then or we could just, I say, add that to H, followed by those in opposition of the proposal.
and Ed, you seem to do a good job at finding of facts, I think you call it at the end,
Yeah, that was new, we should add that in here, probably, if we do.
after K. I like that. Not sure I know how to do that, but.
I think
It
the
would-
findings of fact would go in, for decisions, right?
Yep. Probably after A and move B to C would become C, so after section 4 and under decisions,
Oh, I see, okay, yep.
the board shall state findings of fact on any approvals, conditional approvals or disapprovals. I'm trying to find the, if that's, I'll try to find the RSA. That was new, I think last year is when the findings of facts came into requirement by the state. And technically, you're supposed to do it on approvals as well.
Wouldn't you want to just put just following all decisions?
Yeah, that's a nice way to shorten it.
Yeah.
See, this is why we're stronger as a board.
Who put this together originally? Did you hire a technical writer?
I couldn't tell you.
Issues of a decision.
It was,
What their zoning ordinances is
Some of
getting
these-
added to.
well, and a lot of times sometimes there's model bylaws, like the state Office of Planning and Development puts together a lot of these, and I believe this is very close, if memory serves me correctly, this is very close to what those are. 676.3, in accordance with RSA 676.3. Thanks, Teresa.
You're welcome.
Faster with those RSAs.
I have them tabbed. Excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat.
Should there be a note also, that you're saying finding of facts, but also about conditions and, conditional use approvals,
Conditional approvals?
if that's all
That's all part of
encompassed
the
in the
motion.
conditionally approved, maybe.
Yeah, I think, how did you word it again? Instead of saying,
Following all decisions.
yeah. So it would be the board shall issue a findings of fact in accordance with RSA 676.3, following all decisions. Jesus, thank you.
We need to make it an early night for you.
Apparently.
And I just found another phrase in here, under B, section 5B. And will be, this is the minutes, and will be posted at the Town of Nottingham municipal offices and on the town website. I think that's the appropriate terminology, perhaps.
I don't post those anywhere besides the website, so if I'm supposed to, let me know.
Yeah,
I think they have to be available at the town hall, so they don't have
like on the
to.
bulletin board or something, or whatever, maybe.
Has anybody ever come in and say, hey, can I look at the minutes from last week?
No,
So instead of posted, we'll say, will be available.
yeah,
Get rid of the word posted, make it available.
I think that makes sense.
But it is posted. I think we need to leave posted for that.
Mm.
That it's posted on the town website.
Yeah.
And available at the town,
So available.
land use office.
I mean, it is also available.
During
on the
hours,
town
right?
website.
Alana,
I'm sorry?
we'd have to add during hours,
Yeah,
so that people don't think they can just come in on Monday to look at,
during land use hours. Yeah.
during operating hours.
Yeah, I think as long as we're operating within the scope of the RSA and making them available through that, I think we're okay on this without getting too, into the weeds on it too.
It's kind of funny having new eyes look at these when we've looked at them how many years?
As I said, yeah, oh, I think they're all set to go.
Famous
is good.
last words.
New eyes.
Well, you see it within every other ordinance too, and document that we have. It's like, even with certain cases, you start looking at it and you look at it a different way, you think about it a different time. And it's not that you're trying to change your perception of how it's applied, but something comes in and
I've been doing.
impacts it a little bit different. So it's great to have
New eyes.
new eyes and verbiage and everything else.
Read it fast. Chapter and night.
My term will be up. There's a lot of chapters there.
Yes, there is.
Anything else?
No, I'm done. Thank you very much.
The only thing we have, section 7, I'll call out a little bit. So the way we have this now is, we have, applicants will authorize us to enter the property and everything else. And technically, if it's not posted in the state, you're allowed to enter it as well. But, with section 7, I think this is just calling about conducting site walks specifically. It's not saying that no board member can go walk a property, but I think that's probably something we should discuss with the board and make sure we understand. I feel like it's, I feel like there's been language from either NHMA, the Municipal Association, or ODP, either discouraging individuals from walking it by themselves, but, I think basically they're just saying, nobody should go hold a site walk, or multiple members shouldn't go perform a site walk. you know, that could end up being a quorum.
I did read about something that said, you know, if you go do the site walk and there's another member there, don't talk to them because you're in effect having a meeting.
Only if there's a quorum that meets. It's like for the zoning board, there's 5 on the zoning board, 2 of us can go on a site walk prior to our meeting, and we're allowed to do that because there's not 3. If there was a 3rd member that shows up,
It's a joint meeting.
then it's officially a meeting, and we can't do that without having a notice go out. So I'm very careful when I send out messages. I'm like, make sure there's not 3 of you together.
Okay. So does the applicant not sign on their application, something that authorizes the planning board to, or people from the town to go and visit the site?
They do.
So is that enough, or do we have to schedule a site walk separately and only go during that time?
That's what I was trying to get to is, I think it's just important for the board to understand. So I think it's, we can look up and address this later on, just to double check what the guidance is from the state side of it. But as Mrs. Baskin pointed out, yeah, if multiple people go, you gotta be very cautious, about the appearance of any kind of, you know, prejudging or discussing of something without an applicant present.
If you have a quorum, you could have a vote.
If you have a quorum,
and
yeah,
It wasn't a publicly opened meeting. You
that's
don't
even
wanna
stickier, right? That would be even stickier, but even 2 people,
Don't want.
it's discouraged to, talk about any cases that are pending.
But under a quorum, Chris and I could get together and go walk on a site that we know is an upcoming project. We wanna go look at it. Someone wants to move a property line voluntarily, we want to get an eye on it. Is that discouraged?
That's when I'll look back up, so I think we can leave that for now, and I'll look it up, and see the guidance on that one again. Blair, you don't have anything off the top of your head on that one, do you? From,
I think best practices is just
do it
not
during a
to
site walk,
talk to, you know,
Applicants.
applicants or other.
or even each other.
You can convey something that perhaps is not accurate. So drive-by is
Sure.
okay, or, hi,
Yeah, but here you go, here's the situation, now that we're talking about it. You've got Falzone's property that's on 156, right? There's a parking area for you. You as a member of the planning board, by yourself, could technically, because you are giving permission as a board member to go walking. You don't have to bring anybody with you, it's just gonna be you. You technically have permission, from what they signed, it says you. Now, you shouldn't bring you or you with you, but is that what you're asking for, a question on that leeway? Cause I mean, I've done that before, where I can't make the meeting because I'm working, and I might go the next day and just, you know, casually take a look at the road, walk in a little bit to see what the slope of it looks like, and just by myself, you know, not, you know, I'm not hanging out there all day having a thing, I'm literally just, and if somebody was out there, I'd say, listen, I'm on the planning board, this is what it is, your case here's coming up, and I'm just here doing a site valuation, just so I have a better configuration when you come in front of the board. Stop. No questions, no answers, no nothing, just address who you are and what you're doing, and that's it.
Yep, so I think leaving that as is for now, and like I said, I'll just double check and see if there's anything separate that guides us one way or the other, but just, once you're a member of the planning board, yeah, even if you're acting on your own behalf, as kind of public interest, you'll always have that hat on as well, so just a reminder.
I'll look it up as well.
Especially if there's a case. Now, if somebody asks you and there's no cases, no nothing, well, you better know what you're talking about.
personal property, carrying a gun.
All right, anything else on the bylaws and the rules of procedure?
That's good, thank you.
So would anybody like to make a motion to adopt the amended, version?
Do we have to state each and every one?
No, I think as we stated, as we mentioned it.
Get all that, Alana? Ask it later.
I've made
I'll
corrections.
make a motion to adopt the amended bylaws.
Second.
So it's a motion by Mr. Stevens, second by Mrs. Bascom. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. All right.
Do we have to sign it?
Yeah, we'll sign them either, we can sign them at
She gets them done.
the next meeting. We'll have a signing.
There's a sheet in
Or
your
we can-
binder.
Sign this. It'll just we'll just have to add the date though, it's only,
Oh, if you want me to change
Oh,
it
no, we'll
first,
add
I
it to
can
the,
do that. Yep,
yeah.
I'll change it.
Quill and inkwell just.
Sorry, Alana.
Yep, that's okay.
All right. Review subdivision regulations. So we had some items
She was hoping we weren't gonna make any changes.
before.
Alana, I've made the changes in here if you want to.
Alana, I don't know if you have those, I forwarded you an email, I think, that had some of the items that we had as like housekeeping on these, that I think Blair had compiled for us, previously. I don't know if you can pull that up or. So basically, here's some of the items, I'll just read through some of the things we've had in the past. So some are zoning ordinance related, which we're not addressing tonight, this would be further in the year.
You have the sheet here, but
Perfect. So some of the things we've discussed, and I think we've done, lot disturbance coverage, we've created some of that. Steep slopes, we've talked about a number of times, kicked it down the road. The verbiage would have to be updated from our, what we have. The state provides some draft ordinance, and then we had a draft ordinance created by Bruce Mayberry years ago. So that's something I think we can talk about later in the year. I think we're seeing a lot more of that again, you know, in those 15% and higher, or even 25% and higher slopes. And obviously, those areas tend to be more sensitive and require quite a bit more of cut and fill and stabilization afterwards.
Wasn't one of our main reasons too for the fact that when we were talking about steep slope ordinances for you're talking about driveways or just in general?
Just in general,
Okay.
yeah.
Because we had the driveway was for the point of access for emergency vehicles.
Yeah, so we-
Being too steep, they can't get up the hill.
Even delivery vehicles, that was the other
That too, right,
thing.
yeah.
Residential driveways.
I was just gonna say that.
Can't get a septic truck down or a propane truck, oil truck down. So maps, we have a couple of updates on the maps, I believe. I think the town center district, showing that instead on the zoning map instead of the commercial district, the aquifer protection district map. I think we talked about readopting, which I don't think we've done yet, just to, with a revised version, that's a reduced file size and, doesn't change the boundaries at all. FEMA map, which I don't think has been updated still. I think it's still 2005, maybe.
I believe so,
And,
and it shouldn't be.
and then maps for Piscataqua watershed for regulatory, that one I have to get back to. So I'm gonna punt on those for tonight. Add a housekeeping clause, I think was a suggestion from Blair. Was that, I believe that might be for the zoning ordinance as well, so we'll skip past that, sorry. Subdivision site plan review, here's our items. We've corrected some language in a couple of articles, which we can pull up. Correct the number of plan sets for the applications. We already changed our applications themselves to require less sets of plans. But we have to update our subdivision regulations to match that, for both subdivision and site plan review regulations. Some corrections in the appendices. Roads in Nottingham, pre-approved future road names, map of fire cisterns and dry hydrants and recommended street names. That's in the subdivision regs, but it doesn't exist in site plan review regulations at
Why
this
does
time.
it exist at all when we've got people coming before us with names anyway?
Peekable.
That was, the list of names was to help the people that can't make decisions on names, that these were names available for them to put on there.
And to try to encourage them to.
Right.
Try to encourage them to use names that were more, well, A, approved by the town and put forward by town residents and already pre-approved through 911 and E911 to make it so easier process. But in the end, the applicants can always go before the board of selectmen and petition any road name they want. So, I agree, it's just, but I think it's
just
trying
think
to,
it's
it's trying to encourage the names that are fitting for the town as opposed to, you know, their kids' names and family names.
But it seems like, based on one of our last subdivisions, that's not something they're even thinking about. So if we're trying to make things a little more streamlined and less cumbersome, it would seem to me that getting rid of the names, the list of names, would be one way of reducing the amount of paper number one, that we're using for our regulations, and, I mean, the other thing is, do we go through and go, okay, this name's been used and take it off? Or,
Yeah, but even because of 911 things now, you can't have two names that with the similar word into it. Like, you can't have Granite Ledge Street and Granite Road. Two granite is not, they
Right.
say, no, don't mix those two. So even when the Board of Selectmen sees a name, it has to be something that has to be, nothing that's, you can't have Rocky Hill and Rocky Ledge, road, both have, we don't want that, that's too close to being.
right, but it's the
to the same.
BOS that makes the decision on the names anyway, right? So why?
The applicant makes a decision on the name, we approve whatever applicant.
Well,
they
that's,
say.
yeah, that's
Right,
what I
that's-
meant.
Yeah.
So then, do we really need to have it, Ed? Just,
But all those names
Just
that are
asking.
listed, that are in that thing, are names that already been approved, that don't have contradiction to names that are already in town, so it's kind of just I view it, this is my opinion, I view it as just here's a guy, if you can't figure out, here's something for you to help you with your
Well,
your
do they
process of
have
name.
to stay with the name? In other towns, I've seen where people, the engineer put his son's name in there, or he put Felix the cat, Felix, on a plan, and that was never intended to be the name, and everyone's like, where the heck did that come from? And he said it was his cat's name or something, and he just needed to stick a name on the thing, and afterwards, it was changed to another name.
Yeah.
Do we have to stay with the name of whatever's on the plan, or is that?
I like, since we did get a public comment to create that list and it did get pre-approved with E911 through the select board, I like keeping it, but I think, to Mrs. Bascom's point, I think if we have a way of really calling it out ahead of time, maybe at time of application, where it's shown somewhere on the application that, any new street proposed, please see list of pre-approved names, appendix, whatever. I think that would potentially be helpful to
Right.
to draw the applicant's attention that, hey, guess what, we already have a list of roads. And if we write it that way, yes, they still have a way to choose differently, but I think it might
But
Guide them to-
who's in charge of updating that list?
us. Well, us as they come on and off, but,
It's the BOS,
so
the
select board,
selectman's office is the one that typically does that,
yeah.
but these all seem like the same ones that have been here since I was here.
Yeah, I don't think any have been
I don't
used yet.
understand why the list is
And I don't
there.
see any that have been chosen.
And we don't get a lot of, new roads, I think,
Right.
one this year,
Two,
two,
Frederick and Peekaboo.
Peekaboo, sorry,
Those
two.
names are not there.
But even if you go back when they did Rocky, whatever, that name wasn't one of the ones on
Yeah,
there either.
exactly.
But I think that was before these came out, I think this, but,
Well, didn't it came out after Francesca and all of those were
been out for a
developed
while.
anyway, right?
Pretty sure it's been up for a
Yeah, that's what
while.
I'm saying.
It's been there for a while.
Yeah,
Before that is what I'm saying, before the Francesca.
before even, okay.
And then all the new names that were transferred on E911, all the people on the roads got to make their own names up too, so they didn't use
Yeah,
it either.
these are the pre-approved ones. It
Yeah.
doesn't say these are the ones that presently exist, but they do have the list of appendix 2, no, sorry, appendix 1 is the list of all the roads in town. At some point, at some date, which I don't see on.
And I think that's what we used, I'm trying to recall back, when we were doing the E911 names. We were looking at all the other road names in town to make sure that none of the road names that people were requesting were in conflict.
Yeah, Joanne.
Like if somebody had
was involved with
Loon Lane and Loon Drive, it's like, no, you can't have two loons that are.
that. They need to be out on the lake.
But this has no date on it either. I think Janet was the one that created this list. I mean, we gotta date these things somehow.
so,
Just throw it out, we don't have to worry about it.
so for site plan regulations, again, the housekeeping besides, a couple of language items, it's, the roads in Nottingham with site plan regulations, so current, existing roads. Pre-approved future road names, map of fire cistern and dry hydrants, that would have to be updated for any that were added, since the last revision. recommended street names. That's in the subdivision regs, but not in site plan regs. For subdivision regs, list of roads and private public status, that's something that has to be updated, hasn't been touched since, a lot of things have been adopted through the various warrant article 19s. List of scenic designated roads, the list is correct, but the tax map references were incorrect. I think they're 911 map references, not, town tax maps. List of pre-approved future road names, and map of fire cistern and dry hydrants, so. So those are kind of housekeeping items. After that, it's, if anybody has any, anything else they've identified through the, through their review. Like, you have something,
The
sorry.
E911 map, who is the official keeper of that map?
Good question.
It's usually the fire department. Does anybody have a reason to believe it might be that?
Could be the police department.
It could be.
I mean, they respond to every single call that there is too.
Yep.
And they're usually first on call.
So, was it maybe a couple of years ago, you guys were taking some roads by the lake, and so you started to, like, one road had offshoots, and it was all the same name. You just knew where you're going. Turn left at the big oak tree, and, you know, that's how it was. Then you
6 and 8 are down there, and 12 is over here, and 11
started to
back
give
there.
the little
I live on that
spurs
road.
their own names.
We did that.
That has been done.
That has been done.
Okay.
All the spurs have names.
Okay. Who's the keeper? Who would know what those spurs are and what those names are? The reason why I'm asking is because as part of my hazard mitigation plan, which I'm doing for the community, I've been working with Dale and Mike McNeil in the police department to give them an updated map. SRPC is part of our service for you guys is to, you know, help with this and update it. And so that's what I'm doing. And I don't know now if I'm doing an E911 map or I'm just giving, if they're just looking for anything that gives them all the updated roads on a map, on a single map. You know, Dale has it for his reasons. Obviously, Mike has it for his E911 reasons. But they want to see something that shows all those little spurs. Now, typically, when the assessing department adds new lots, which includes a new road, that information comes to SRPC, so we can update our maps for everybody, right? But this is different. You just took existing roads and put new names on them. So now I'm wondering, okay, how did that, has that information gotten to us? Because I literally was working on it today and have been for the last several weeks with the 3 parties. So I'm trying to find out, without a huge lift, who's got this information? Like, is there a keeper of that?
I think it would be safe to say the fire chief. Was it 15 years ago, they sold us our 911 mile markers that we put at the end of our street, at the end of our driveway? I bought it off the fire department.
I don't remember how long
Longer
ago
than
that
that,
was.
but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know which one I mean, it's those little green ones.
But they just did the 911.
I think
They
it,
just redid
It
it
was
again.
during that time.
I think an email to the town administrator
That might be best.
would be best.
I don't either.
Because she can check in with,
Yeah, I've been here a long time.
fire chief and the police chief as
I've been here
necessary.
20 years.
Yeah, but you
weren't a private.
Identify where that is,
Oh, it's still a road.
yeah.
I think we've got it all, but I just want to make sure. Right now, Dale, they're with Dale and Mike to review them and let me know, but Dale's away.
I put a big number on in front of mine on a tree, so now.
I would suggest that that one is in the works, the E911 map.
Okay.
It seems like that's what I am working towards, and then that, and that would be updated, and it would be sent around to different departments, so everybody has that new updated map with all those little road names. And of course, all new subdivisions that haven't been captured in the last year or so.
I was told that Dale is the 911 guy.
Perhaps. It's usually an emergency person, whether it's police or fire. Most communities I've seen or worked in, it's been the fire chief, but, I mean, there's no reason why it has to be.
Ours is the police chief.
Is it? Okay. Fair enough. So, I will work with her and Mike, and we'll get something put together. So at least, you know, around town hall, you'll have some updated maps.
Yeah, because we paid for all the signs to list all those, so I know that they're there.
Yeah.
And they got little red dots that say, we don't plow this road.
Now you need those little green signs.
We got the little green signs.
So what I would task,
No, not the road signs.
ev-
Oh, then, We ain't paying for that this year. We'll wait till next
No,
year.
no, no, we had to pay. I
What,
think.
what I would task everybody to do
Yeah.
on these is, for the subdivision site plan review regulations, you know, we can continue to discuss tonight if anybody has identified anything at this time. Otherwise, I know there's some housekeeping sections that we need to clean up. The applications themselves, you know, we've addressed. So the process for updating either of these items is a lot easier than the zoning ordinance. Zoning ordinance is warrant articles, that go to the town for a vote. Subdivision site plan regulation updates are public hearings. I think it's just one. I would have to check if it might be two, but, and then they can be amended. So again, there's some very easy lifting things. I think we keep pushing off down the road, thinking we're gonna have some heavier stuff than we want to kind of encompass all at once. And by doing so, we stay the status quo. So the easy things are just some verbiage updates, things like that, you know, nothing that changes meaning at all, updating number of plan sets, those kind of items that I had mentioned, updating some of the appendices, or correcting them as appropriate. But after that, you know, where are we with, you know, as you go through it, as you go through the documents to make sure that they read correctly. And you know, there's been some question about adding clarification language about, even the site plan section as to, you know, what changes on a site plan that would then require an amended site plan before the planning board. You know, is anytime something on that plan is added that wasn't shown, including a shed,
Yeah, that,
even if it's within setbacks and everything else, you know, because it wasn't on the original site plan, they go to pull a permit, you know, are they then forced to file an application for an amended site plan? Things of that nature. We hadn't had a lot in the past. You know, now we're getting more commercial by design. So as we're seeing that, we're starting to get some of these questions that are a little bit newer to this board in some ways. So is there any way we can streamline that or clarify it enough that it either gives the building inspector more autonomy or guidance as to when to kick it to us for review? So that'd be something I would kind of encourage everybody to kind of read through and on the site plan regs and try to figure out if there's a way we can add that language in somehow. When do we want our purview to be added, and when do we want to let the building inspector use their judgment?
I feel like we are, it's been almost an hour now, covering over what we've covered over before in a
Yep.
meeting as to what needs to be done. But I think we need to start either subcommittees or little groups to, like, you take this section and look at it and come back with some recommendations, if there's any, that type of thing, so we can get through them versus just
Well,
punting them down again and again.
Can I make a suggestion here?
Yeah,
Because of all our
that's what
new
we're
members-
doing, this is a work
Yeah,
meeting.
because of all our new members here, shouldn't we just have a general workshop to educate after these guys read these all dues? Because it's lengthy. A subdivision, there's more regulations, there's more stuff in that there. I mean, your head will spin. Is that maybe we should sit there as a board and answer some of the general questions that people might have, or some of the questions in there, and then decide whether we go on subcommittees or making changes. Because even when I read the subdivisions, and I've been here for a while, there's still things that I question when they come through, that on berms and on, you know, drainage proposals and, I mean, trees, and I mean, there's so much. I mean, that, I don't know how well aware you guys are of the technical
Aspects to
aspects
this.
of everything that's in a site plan. That's why when somebody comes in and they're trying to do a 20-lot subdivision, they know it's gonna be a year, because there is so much information that's required, and then depending on their location, because nothing's a flat field in Nottingham that they're gonna put their nice little development in. You've got hills, you've got ledge, you've got steep
Wetlands.
slope ordinances, you've got, if you're on scenic roads, you have, I mean, there's just, for any of you guys, I know we're all new, but to really take a scope of what we have
and what's in there. Because every case that we're gonna see, and you guys are gonna see, especially you guys that signed up for 3 years, you'll be here for a while, the future, you're gonna notice that, I mean, even the past cases that we just did, these past 2 years, there weren't I mean, there were some similarities, but there was a lot of differences between each case on stuff you didn't even know. And then even when you go to site plan reviews on industrial, on stuff that's a Route 4, which could be coming up, not there's no plan, there's nothing, but I'm just saying, there's more stuff to read on that. Is that maybe in general that we should have you guys, and again, I'm just saying this, is to go through and just have a workshop, because literally, we could take 2 hours of a night just helping you guys educate on what a lot of these things are. And I don't say, I mean, it's just so when the meeting comes, and I felt like this years ago when I first sat on the board, the first 2 years I sat here and the guy's doing a site plan, I sat here like a deer in headlights going, what the hell is this guy talking about? What does this mean here? And I ended up not being able to participate in the meeting, because I spent more time going back after the meeting to look up what the heck we were talking about in order to figure out where all these situations were coming up.
And it raises a question, right? Because now I'm a little bit, I'm kind of holding off on asking questions to my board member colleagues. I'm a little nervous about that after all these conversations we've had. I started to read this, and I had a number of conversations. I sent Teresa a text, what does this mean?
That's probably why I'm bringing it up.
So is that allowed? Can we lean on each other?
Oh, yeah, as long as you're not speaking about a case specifically or anything like that, if it's ordinance and you have questions about it, that's encouraged. So it's, again, you're leaning on your peers, either on the board, other boards. And you'll never, I don't think anybody will ever know everything or feel like they know every piece of it. I think every meeting, even, I've got, I think 12 years-ish on this. There's stuff that comes up, and again, we'll have stuff come off that's a one-off, call it a unicorn, that's, and all of a sudden we think we need to change everything because we get that one weird example that could only exist in that one spot. So you'll always run into stuff that makes you uncomfortable, but I think the beauty of this and having new members and new perspectives and everybody's got a different background is you do pick up on some things that, sometimes we'll miss it because we're into the weeds of it, and it's like someone will say, ask a question and say, wait, are you saying this? And it's like, oh, wait, yeah, they are. So
There's so many different ways we can do it. We can do it as breaking up into groups.
Yep.
And do some sort of training that way, but for me, it's going to be project specific, right? As these projects come up and people are putting things in front of us, I'm gonna have some questions. Am I not allowed to ask those because it's about a case?
right.
If the applicant's in front of us and about the case, ask away.
Yeah, I would suggest, write them down and just bring them to the meeting and ask them at night. And again, as long as we're asking everything respectfully, there's times where we ask a question and it, even if it's that's exactly how it is. It's,
Even if we're talking like a new development, they come in, they talk about the 30,000 square foot envelope needed on there.
Right.
If you have a question on the 30,000 envelope, ask at the meeting right there. Because sometimes too, what you find is a great resource is, a lot of the developers that are coming in, they're planners that are there, we've seen them over the years, many times. And I personally feel like they're not here to, try to manipulate us to get to approve it, but they do educate you a lot on some of these things, and to ask them right during the meeting to say, hey, you're talking about this, and this is my first year, ask away. Because, even at times, I enjoy that because it refreshes me on stuff that I might have forgotten. So for, the questions that you might have, I think I might know the answer, but it might be different, and so I encourage to ask as many questions as you can when it comes to these, because there's so much to know, you just can't.
And those planner guys, those planner people typically know what section in the ordinance they're talking to, too.
Yeah.
And then you can go look it up and go, oh, okay. Remember seeing that.
and anything gets super technical, I don't want anybody to ever feel overwhelmed with that, because, even within our regulations, we've got, driveway slopes and grades and things like that, we've got, roadway, examples. That's created by an engineer, so we didn't, as a board, just come up with those numbers, that came from somewhere else, a consultant or, another document, so, again, generally the people that are proposing major subdivisions, major site plans, they have engineers involved and different scientists and things like that, it's not expected that we have that level of necessarily knowledge, but that's why we will use our third-party consultant that does have that knowledge and that capability to
We send to the
really look at
engineer.
those pieces and give us the details back on that and their input on that part of it. Ultimately, it's, it is our decision on things, but,
But we still have to interpret what the engineer comes back with and says.
Sure.
I was reading through something on a case, and just like, okay, what is this really, how is he really, what is he really saying here? So it's tricky. I have read through all the ordinance and the site plan and then the master plan, and I'm going through there's a planning meeting coming up very soon. I don't remember the date, but it's like a Saturday.
on the virtual.
Yeah.
3rd or something.
So I'm planning on attending that, and I've been trying to jam as much into my brain as possible, and I think you mentioned the website where the emails, everybody's emails bounce back and forth questions.
Right.
And I'm getting just overloaded with that, but I'm reading those, it's just kind of interesting, different questions that pop up that other boards members from around the state are having, and I did go to another town meeting, I won't say which town, but I will say that what we're doing here is about 1 billion miles ahead of this other particular town that could not even formulate a motion. A small subdivision I was like sitting there going, oh my God.
There's like John said, there's so much to learn, it's all very technical, and I was going through it, and then after a while, you go through it and you get a little bit bored, because I don't know what I'm reading. And so I challenged,
You have to do it in chunks.
I challenged an AI platform to write a master plan.
Really?
Yeah, should have seen what it came up with.
Yeah.
It was really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. But, I'm just trying to dive in and try to learn things.
Right.
Every time somebody asks a question, that's a chance for me to learn something.
Right.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
a good, that's a really great approach to it, I think, yeah.
And it's good to have, everybody has a different background and expertise, and so we all can bounce some ideas back and forth across each other and opinions, and we may not all agree, but, just in spirit of the ordinance, we probably have 10 different interpretations of the same sentence.
Yes, and I'm reading something, and I'm reading about the slopes. There's an awful lot about these slopes. And when a guy builds a road, and he's gotta have, is it 3-to-1 or 2-to-1? 3 feet for every 1 foot, that's gonna send that thing out 65 feet going this way. Did anybody tell him he has to have guardrails now? Is there an ordinance for that? So now I'm going way too deep, I stopped.
Right. Yeah.
This is why I like, having the PDF versions online and everything, because you can just search it quickly. Yeah.
Right.
Like guardrail, yeah, we've got a section 14.7.6 and some site plan regs as to when those are required, so. But I wouldn't know that off the top of my head, because again, we don't run into it on every case or even every year as to when those come into play. Again, that's where sometimes that outside consultant comes in and they remind us that, I think they did that on a recent case, that was a requirement, so.
Yeah, we talked about guardrails recently, I think.
So that's always helpful, so,
Oh, they're putting new ones in on Route 4, that's what made me think of it.
so yeah, they're only about 100 pages each, but so by design, these two documents a number of years ago were readopted, completely rewritten to kind of mirror each other a little bit more. So you'll notice as you're reading site plan review regulations and you go to look at subdivision regulations, a lot of sections are very, very similar into the standards. So, because obviously one is for subdividing generally, multiple parcels and residential, it can be other stuff, whereas the site plan is commercial. But a lot of times there's sections that are almost identical. So it's not quite as overwhelming as.
Same thing with zoning,
first thought.
right? The zoning and the planning board kind of mesh.
Yeah, we try to have a lot of it.
Well, it just makes it easier
Similar.
because regulations are pretty much the same for everything. It's just that depends on the scale of what you're doing.
Yeah.
It
And
really, it changes the focus.
if there's anything in there that's very ambiguous, that, I like to add kind of, again, if it can be interpreted multiple ways very easily, it's good to add clarifying language when possible. And that's, again, we're having new individuals reading it helps out, because I interpret it this way, I interpret it this way,
It's
we've always
fine
interpreted
line.
it this way.
Like how many pigs you can have near the lake?
Sure, exactly.
In my mind, everybody looks at it differently. To me, it's a fine line because I want to also be careful not to make a Swiss watch out of this,
Right,
right? Let's not get overboard here.
exactly. Yeah, so sometimes it's, you can, everybody's got their own learning methods, but it's even picking up an old case and trying to go through, look, all our applications are online and historical ones for a few years. You can kind of look at a plan set and kind of go through it and see what questions you might have had, and then kind of see how it went.
So how do you want to move forward with what needs to be done for looking at these? Because especially the steep slope stuff, that's come up a few times. And I know it's becoming more and more of an issue because, as John said, we don't have much flat land in town. And much of the land that's currently available for developing has a lot of steep slopes in it. So there are some things that I think should be taking a priority. Just what was your recommendation for that?
Sure, for that would be a zoning amendment, so I think we're just too early in the year to really get into it.
But if we don't do something soon,
I agree.
and it's going to be
Can't,
Oh, I know.
October.
can't
Yeah.
zoning amendments be made with a special vote?
They can, but there's, because of the SB2 schedule, there's timelines involved as to when the public hearings can be held and first public hearing and all that, so it's,
Come up quick.
they do come up quick. They're usually in the fall, so I can send out, like for that specific one, through Alana, I can send out any draft language we've had, so there's a modal ordinance from the state, and then our past one, again, then it's the will of the board as to, do we move forward with it when it comes to amendment time, warrant article season? Do we change it? And again, anything that this board does, even on that, it goes before the voters, and they're the ultimate, they have the ultimate say, so, but I think we're seeing the same thing in a lot of communities, and it's a very common ordinance in other communities as to how they approach it. They approach it differently. Some just don't allow development in certain slopes. Others have percentages and things like that, that they, allow certain things to occur, so. But I think every community's seeing that, where the marginal lands, are getting developed in creative ways. And
Yeah, it's getting tricky out there. So,
Can I say something, or are you gonna hold that
I'm
thought, or
just
you gotta
thinking
go?
that summer's coming up,
Yeah.
and then
I-
it's gonna be fall, and we're
fall,
gonna
and it'll be there.
be hit with a lot of
I would agree
cases.
with Teresa, now that we definitely, if we have the time, we should do it instead of waiting till we get closer, because then we're into budget season, then we're into,
So,
the holiday seasons that are coming along. We don't know, we could have 3 cases in front of us. That might be taking up all our time, and then it's just the luxury of throwing another workshop in, when you're already, everybody's busy during those times, to add another meeting during those. Usually what people don't, I particularly don't like it, so I'll just say that,
Yeah.
But, right now, where we have only really one case that's really in front of us and some other stuff, that if we were gonna do this, I think now would be probably a good time to start talking, because we can always just get it preliminary done, and then come back in the January time and say, okay, this is what we talked about in June, this is how it stood. Is there, at least we have the form of what
Yeah.
we think we're gonna wanna send to the voters for changes.
Sure.
Those have to be done by December, I think, don't they? And then they get posted, and
Well, we
then,
have to have a public meeting on them.
right, which is why I'm saying they
Right.
have to be done sooner than January. I'm pretty sure.
November,
I know you were,
November-ish,
yeah, maybe you were just saying January is
The November.
but I'm thinking they're
November-ish.
Right, well, we don't vote till
March.
March, so,
We have to have public meetings for these things first.
right.
Then it
And
goes,
then any changes or whatever, and then
our recommendation, then it goes onto the ballot, there's
Yeah, it's-
several steps.
become more
And so, if it's November, we have, like, 4
Yeah.
months here, 4 meetings.
It's usually, December is usually kind of the end of November, and then getting into December is usually the first date you can hold a public hearing for, any proposed amending, zoning amendments, and then early January is the last day you can usually have the first public hearing if a second hearing is required, so you run into those deadlines. I don't have the 2024 schedule yet, but, that was the 2023, and they're always similar, so. I'll, like I said, I'll go back through anything we've looked at in the past that would be zoning related. And, that's been suggestions either from our joint meetings or that we've proposed, and, I'll get that to Alana to share to everybody, and then we can create another workshop to discuss those. And then as for the site plan subdivision regulations, does anybody want to do like subcommittees to really get into those, or just let everybody kind of work through them on their own, come up with a list of questions and everything so we can start addressing and then get a public hearing on the books for updates?
Site plan or subdivision or both?
Both,
Okay.
ideally.
I think that because of the foul zone subdivision that's gonna be in front of us again,
Yep.
is gonna be a good learning curve, because it's gonna be unique for where it's located, or just all the things in general in that. There should be a lot of good questions you guys should be able to get and entertain from that, because of the idea of the location and whatever, and all the other stuff that's gonna go along with that, the other side of the approval process.
Those questions have already started.
Oh,
Now,
absolutely.
a big question has arisen based on the email that we got today,
Right, exactly,
yes.
we're not talking about, right,
that we
exactly.
can't talk about.
No, but you're exactly right. You're exactly right.
Right.
That's what I was referring to too. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, this caused a certain amount of,
Yeah, we're not having a
Question.
discussion on it, so we're okay to say what we're saying, but I'm saying that, right, that's a good learning curve we're gonna have when the applicant's in front of us.
thank you for not mentioning that, Doug.
Yes. See, for me, to break it up into, if we could just have subcommittees, right, that would be great, but I'm still way back on, I'm gonna go sign on for that full day in May, I'm still in training.
Yeah.
So to accept a subcommittee, say, oh yeah, I'll do it, we're not sure about that yet.
Yeah, what's that date? Does anybody have that date?
Is it the 3rd or the
It's early in May, it's not.
Alana sent that out,
Yeah, I have it,
It's the municipal association, right?
right?
ODP, OSI.
And thank you guys for going.
Yeah.
So it's, this year, they made it easier, it's virtual, it used to be in Concord a bunch of years, and it was up, they'd break it up into different counties, so it was up in the Mount, whatever, the Yellow Grand Hotel.
Oh, I'm on this, I'm not getting anything.
So it could be a hall, so now that they
They
do it
help us in
virtually.
Whitefield?
Whitefield, yeah, thank you. So now they're virtual, so it makes it easier, so even if you can, and they're free, so I'm not encouraging anybody to just sign up and then not go, but if you sign up and you can only attend 1 or 2 of the sessions that are, you find helpful, great, because it is a Saturday, it is a big commitment, every time spent here is a big commitment for people, so, but consider doing that, just taking a look at it, even people that have been here for a while, take a look at it, and see if there's
I
anything.
apologize for not writing down the details, but how do we sign up for that thing?
I think it's just a link, you just
Gonna do it for
register,
us?
I think you do
Well,
register
I-
yourself, because there's no cost.
yeah, if it's free, I think you can just do it yourself.
Yes.
All right then.
We can send that email out again.
I have the date here, just looking.
If there's another, isn't there another one through?
What's the title of it? I can
Shemay?
do a search.
Hard road to travel one?
That one had a cost, and
Yeah.
Okay, it's the NHOPD Spring 2024 Planning and Zoning Conference. It's Saturday, May 11th, 8:45 to 3:30 PM. I can resend this
Yeah.
out, this link again.
if you don't mind,
Yep.
it always helps when it's at the top of the email chain.
And that's the free one, Alana?
Yes.
Okay. And through NHMA, they had the hard road, and didn't they also have another planning and zoning tracks? I tried the links to that, but it didn't go anywhere, except back to hard road.
That I don't know about a third.
Okay.
Oh, not the free training for municipal officials, right? That's different.
Yeah, that was, yeah. This was planning and zoning. There were the 2 tracks, and they also had hard road. But I wanted just to look at planning and zoning, because I've done hard road.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll
Okay.
resend the email.
So Ed, I have a technical question. You're gonna love this. So in the state, they just readopted this, and I believe it's passed, the language about the ADUs, accessory dwelling units, where they've redefined some of the terminology. So one of the things is that you could have a detached ADU, for example. So that's adopted and then becomes a state law at a certain point. What if we're not changing our ordinances until the following year? Which one rules, and how do you get around that one? Or do you make those changes right now?
No, that's usually part of that fall warrant article season of zoning, so we usually look, and we'll get a list usually from SRPC,
Thanks, Blair.
and NHMA that will, things that have either passed that we need to address. That's where like the findings of fact and some of that came into play, was when that went live. So we usually look at those, is there anything specific because of RSA changes that makes us have to change our zoning to be compliant with? So that'll be usually one of the things. But to your question is, if the legislature and the governor sign something into law and they say it's effective May 1st of 2024, well, we can't even amend the zoning until later. So I would think that because that's the state and they hand it down, that would be in effect. But that would be a question I'd probably go to council on, to be honest with it, getting
Yeah.
before us.
So sometimes state laws will have some sort of performance standards, like if you do it, if for example, like in the one you said, detached ADU, they might say it still has to meet local setbacks, but can be no closer to a property line than 50 feet. The town can make more stringent regulations, unless something is stipulated in the law. So sometimes they give a little bit of guardrails to it, so it's not just a free-for-all.
Yep.
And then until the town passes its own performance standards, the state law is the law, right?
Yep.
So that's typically how it is. It's not always that clean and neat, so, I say that with a lot of caveats.
So would that mean then if the ADU regulations that we have in town, if they don't allow for the ADU to be detached, that would make it more strict than the state
Correct.
regs, right?
But I think the point of the state reg is to say that you have to allow it.
You have to allow a detached,
Yeah.
okay.
Because
I
there's,
understand.
so when the state made a law originally about ADUs, they created some general parameters, and they said the towns could be more stringent. Towns that did not want it found very creative ways to
Can't be over
base.
300 square feet.
Yeah,
It's like,
Nottingham.
Attached interior door that doesn't lock,
Not even joking.
exactly.
things like that. There was,
You go back.
so the point of
Any
what
examples
what Chris is referencing is that they're now requiring you to allow for detached.
I see,
ADUs.
okay,
Yeah.
makes sense,
And
thank
I'm
you.
looking
Which, mind you, can be the above the garage variety, but also just a standalone, plunk it in the backyard on a foundation.
which
Yeah,
one?
but you'd have to still be able to attach that existing septic system, you'd still attach that existing water, you still
Yeah.
do that. So,
There would be no expectation that, utilities would be somehow circumvented. I mean, you could have a separate, septic, or you could expand an existing one. Unless there was room in it, then you could tap into it. Same with water, right?
You'd have to have a
The language in it's very clear.
Yes,
that you have
exactly.
to meet
I've
septic
seen it. I
and
mean,
water
some people will have
requirements.
good separation between the home and the ADU, and they'll have two separate septic systems. But yes, you do still need to meet those regulations.
Yeah, we'd have to see how it's written,
It
because
used to say it had to be attached, and it doesn't anymore that I can see.
ours does.
They don't, not in the zoning.
Yeah.
Does?
Yeah.
It's a common
In,
doorway.
in a
or
lot of
something?
towns, even, they have a permit that has to be filed, renewed every year for it. They can say one unit has to be owner occupied, so you're not getting a bunch of,
I'm on page 4, and I didn't see it.
They also sometimes say that a town will say a breezeway is not considered to be
it's under the,
attached.
it's in the
So
definitions.
That's how some people,
Oh,
they'll make like a 40-foot long
Rather specific.
covered
out-
path between the
Yeah.
two, and technically that is physically, by building standards, that is a structure that needs a building permit ergo, it's attached to the house.
That is actually came in front of the zoning board in years past.
Yeah.
Where people, their two-stall garage, that they were putting the ADU and whatever there, or using a breezeway to say that the buildings are attached, so, because it had to be attached. Now, doesn't matter, they still have to go up the stairs or whatever the things, but those buildings were physically attached by a breezeway.
And you'll see it, I mean, I see it in some of our partner communities, they'll specifically say, a breezeway is not considered attached. You need to physically have a shared wall, right, so.
Yeah, Manchester,
But
the
we
guy,
also have shared walls in town that have lattice work on it, that, I'm just saying to you, that's,
Yeah.
Hey, you can be
it's
creative.
attached.
You need to.
Yeah, it's supposed to not alter the appearance of the character of the single-family residence. It's supposed to be able to be reincorporated into the principal dwelling unit. And then I think there's some other stuff in there too, but,
Where is the ADU? It's hard to find it.
Part of the definition.
oh,
Right.
well, it's in the definitions. It's also in.
No, we've had it
lost
here before I read it.
Wasn't spelled out in the rest of the stuff. I thought
No,
that-
it isn't.
But anyway,
It's not in the index.
It's also in section, page 4, I believe.
2, 3, 4.
I think they might have put a note
Yeah,
about the
page
size
4,
of the
it's
ADU
number
too.
7.
Ah, yeah. Okay, thought I've seen it, yep.
oh, yeah.
We used to be 400 square feet, now we're 720, so
Maybe I have
we
the old-
did
do I have the
change
old
that.
I think it's bigger than that.
My page number's different than you.
Change it,
Ours is
I'm on
Nottingham.
5.
Our Nottingham one says 720.
750.
So, sorry, 750.
Anyway, so we'll address that if and when it comes up.
30-foot miss.
Or we can address it, even if it doesn't come up because of the state RSA, we can always address it as a board anyhow, as a warrant article.
Yeah, because they even increased
Again, we
the
can't go-
square feet on it.
More strict in some ways than the state, if the state specifically calls out like the square footage, you can't go less than 750 square feet.
I do get those and see those and follow those.
Yep.
I'm on a New Hampshire Association Realtor policy meeting that we kind of push those, and so I'll just bring them in and we'll pile them on as we go, so that we have a running list of things that, you know, changes that are important, if they don't come in some other way.
Yeah.
Or changes that we're gonna propose.
Right.
Or we might consider proposing.
So,
Yes.
you know, I did that to our zoning ordinance with my little sticky notes, and, you know, I have some ideas for changes that might be helpful in light of our current housing crisis, and, but it seems like that we're just gonna be talking about those, and it's not until next year that we're actually gonna see anything come about.
Yeah, well, we can't amend the zoning until the statutes say we can, which is, so December for the first public hearing, or January, and then second public hearing, and then it's a very narrow window of time where you can hold those public
We
hearings.
can have a discussion.
So we can have discussions, sure.
As much as we want about
Yeah.
anything in there, and then if we decide that we were gonna move forward with one of the discussions, then we still have to have a public meeting about what we're proposing before it hits the warrant article.
And after you hold those public hearings, if the board moves something forward to a warrant article, any application that comes before us in that weird period of time between vote and when those public hearings were held, are, they're live potentially unless the town votes them down.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Within reason, because there's
So the question is,
gray areas of
when do we let him speak about this?
I mean, if there's items
You
you've
can put it in an agenda, you can put it on a plan, you can say now, you can say.
identified,
Call it, that's you.
yeah.
Throw it out there, that.
I mean, I think we should hold a separate meeting. So what we usually do too is usually in the summer or very early falls, we usually hold a joint workshop with the zoning board. We invite the Conservation Commission, the building inspector, fire chief, police chief, town administrator. We invite them
It's July this year.
to all come before us. That way we can hear about what their concerns are, what they're seeing, things they've identified that we may want to address. The zoning board, it's been a great thing before, because there was some things that were always going before the zoning board, that were just kind of a red tape thing, and they seemed, so we just changed the zoning and it made sense.
It's also nice that we actually have a zoning board member that sits on the
Yes,
board.
that's helpful,
where
too.
Many years that's not the case.
Vice
So-
Chair, thank you.
Yeah, So I would say, in preparation of that, you know, I'd probably get a list together and, that way we can make sure it's we can talk about a lot of things, but we didn't put it on here for one of the things we'll be discussing tonight, but,
Well, our joint meeting is August 28th, but between now and then, if there's something that has come up, could we
Sure.
have it on just a spot on the agenda that says state updates, and then if there's something, then we can just bring it up so we can discuss whether, hey, yeah, that's something we've got to really look into, or,
yeah, I think the next light agenda, even if it's the next one or the one after that, keeping these items on there is possibly other non-business items will include, you know, discussion of review of zoning ordinances. We'll call it review. That way it's, because we're not gonna be updating it at that time, so
right,
that we'll
review or
go through
state
it that way.
updates. You can bring them up then in the meetings.
Okay.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense to you?
I
Because you're
do,
looking at me like,
No, I do, I trying to understand the process, I just see some things that could be changed, and I have ideas, and, I mean, to me, I like this town, and, you know, it's either we have to cut expenses or raise the income, it's like a business. And how do you raise income in the town? Charge everybody more taxes or bring some more tax base in?
Both.
Right. Well, that's a method now, just raise everybody's taxes, so I don't wanna be taxed out, and it's a statewide problem that for people, you know, elderly, you know, affording their homes that they've lived in their whole life, and, you know, it exceeds the amount of the retirement income. It's a problem, so,
and there's nowhere to go.
what's that?
And there's nowhere for
And
them
there's
to go.
nowhere to go, so, one of my ideas is to, you know, make, some higher density housing. We don't have any, from what I saw in here, I saw almost nothing about elderly housing in the ordinance at all. There's not a mention of handicap, you know, veteran, you know, affordable housing, alternative housing,
The
there's nothing in there.
The problem with some of that, from what I have looked into, has been our ability to be close to services for them. Because I know with Northwood having the Meadows, and they have some newer ones coming in, they have the ability to, Concord Hospital, I guess, is within that distance, and other services for them, where Nottingham doesn't have those. That's what I was understanding, is that there's regulations around senior housing and the services that that community can offer to them, and we don't have it.
And one of the other big problems you're gonna see is the fact that Nottingham does not have infrastructure to focus on that. We do not have public water. We do
Right.
not have public sewer.
Neither does
We do not.
Northwood.
You can't put, well, right, but
We don't have public transportation.
we don't have public, it's tough to put in 40 houses in a cluster, a small, and then try to,
Well, there are things though, like,
Sure, there are.
like Tuckaway Restaurant, what do they have there?
Food,
So,
really
you find
good food.
steak tips, they have the biggest septic system in the state.
Oh, really? Wow.
The biggest septic system.
than
Raymond,
the hospital?
Raymond has apartments, they have condos, they have restaurants, they have Hannaford's, they have a mall, banks, pharmacies. We got none.
Right.
They have zero town sewer, zero.
Right, but they do have those other services, and that's what I'm
What do
saying.
they have?
You just mentioned it. You just
water.
mentioned the pharmacy, you mentioned the,
Hospitals,
The-
water, all of it.
They don't, they do have town water in some of it, but, many of their apartment complexes are on private wells. We have,
well, and the Meadows is all private well and septic as well, because Northwood doesn't have that. But what I'm saying to you is, I'm all for it, and I agree we should, if we have the ability to do it, to bring some of those things in for our town, especially elderly housing.
yeah.
But my understanding of the reason we don't is because we don't have the infrastructure to support that within our town, and I'm not talking just about septic and water, but that is a part of it.
And you're probably also gonna see, specifically to that, you're also gonna see an increased utilization of the fire department, fire and rescue.
Right.
Because elderly housing in
Uses
general
it.
is gonna utilize a lot of emergency response, calls. So you have an increase there, which requires an increase in capacity, so there's no, I think with anything here, I think what we're getting at is there's never an easy, there's a lot of difficult problems, and there's never really easy solutions for the most part. If there are, great, but, to like Mrs. Bascom's point, yeah, that, even on the commercial, we've struggled in the past because of, where we are in the corridors that we're on, and the lack of town water, town sewer, town services in different areas. So we're in that.
But we're the planning department, damn it, so we should make those accommodations and look forward to this. So I look at things like, in Bow, where I used to live, they added the White Rock elderly community, which is 150 units. And Bow is the snobbiest, we don't want that crap in our town
I grew up in Bow.
group.
Proof?
Why do you think I like Nottingham the way it is?
So they put this elderly housing in, not a lick of town water, not a lick of town sewer, and, it brings in, $400,000 of tax income to the town, so it helps. And, yes, the fire department and the ambulance department does visit there more often than many of the other places, for the eldest, Fell, Athol Fell or something, but they also have a VNA office in this elderly housing complex to offer, local services to those people who are less than, they have area transportation. There's
Yeah,
Right next to Concord, they got all the services in
exactly.
Concord.
So,
We're 30 minutes away from anywhere you wanna go or need to be.
so
I'd
why
encourage
don't,
more ADUs for your family to live in there instead of in a smaller house.
why don't you look into more of what the regulations are for that to see if they're feasible?
We also don't have nodes in town.
Have what?
Nodes where traffic comes to stop or cross.
We don't have a stoplight in town.
That's correct.
Right.
And I hope we stay that way.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's me.
But we have Route 4, and
No, we do
we
have
don't
Route
care
4.
about how much traffic dumps onto there,
Route
because
4
the
goes
state.
55 miles an hour on a good day and doesn't
During a
stop.
snowstorm.
And just so you know that on Route 4, again, I love these conversations, just so you know, just bring it up, is that the residents that live on the roads that off Route 4 that have residents' houses, right? Now, because there were lots available, the planning board let it go through and said, hey, but those land was also the business district.
Yeah,
And now the business district is going right next door.
Yep.
But we've put so many residentials around our business district that anytime a business goes in, you hear the objection from all the people that live there saying, well, I don't want them to have a sign up. I don't want them to run past 8 o'clock at night for their business. I wanna make sure their lights are all down here and that are doing this. And they make it, so Route 4, I would never wanna see another house built in that area. So the fact that we could try to make it more industrial. But every time that somebody wants to put another residential and a large piece of land off there, it takes away from the industrial.
USAA Springs.
I was,
They have a well that produces 300,000 gallons of water.
can't touch it.
That's not true. They have 3 that will produce the total amount of bottling those, yes.
And,
Go ahead.
and those numbers were highly suspect.
Well,
If,
sure, but let's.
within their own documents, it was pretty question as to the accuracy. of the numbers.
Nevertheless, there is a water supply up there that is probably adequate for a few houses.
Sure.
Or many, perhaps.
Every resident that's across the street is part of it.
300,000 gallons a day, if that's the number, and 150 gallons per bedroom by the state septic standards, is 2,000 homes.
Good lord,
2,000
that's what we
bedrooms.
don't get that there.
What is the impact on all the surroundings?
I was gonna say, so,
We went through this for USA Springs, so.
No, I
you know,
understand.
But it's not a good.
I think
equation.
ultimately, the job of the planning board is we have to behave in a way that the community wants us to.
right.
What does our town want? What do the people in Nottingham want? Do they want elderly housing? Do they want another 1,000 homes up there on Route 4?
No.
I don't think they do, but we would have to
Homes
check,
anyway.
right? We'd have to have some sort of a forum where
The
people
ma-
could
the
tell us.
master plan, so how do we adopt questions to the master plan to say, hey, here's an area of concern. Housing is in crisis mode. We're 26,000 houses short of the needs of New Hampshire right now. The warehouse up on Route 4 that's been on the market for 9,000 days, there's not a demand for commercial warehouses, there's a huge demand for houses. So maybe we need to rethink, hey, let's put our elderly housing there on a main corridor route where there's traffic flow, where there's water, where there's, access to shopping, you know.
So
exit
here's
hospitals,
the
et
first, and again, I understand where you're coming, and I'm not trying to be controversial to what you're saying is, but in all my years sitting on this board from way back when to now, and then always being a part for the last have we had anybody come that wants to put an elderly house system in a town?
No, mostly because of what Mrs. Bascom.
And why is that?
Mostly because of what Mrs. Bascom had said, is what we've been told by applicants and developers, is that
Nottingham's not appealing for it.
we're in the wrong, we're too far from the services that those individuals would potentially need to be able to market to, because we're too far from a hospital.
But technically speaking, it's mostly because we don't cover it in our regulations.
That is correct. That's,
Even, I think we have it under the open space, or we had it before, but
So-
we only pulled residential out of that section a year or two ago, maybe 3
We do
years ago
have
now.
workforce housing. That's in there. There is the capability for, open space. There is the capability, I guess, for cluster.
open space can only be in residential, not in commercial, which is
No,
forced
and-
commercial.
But you can get a zoning ordinance change for that, or a variance.
That's what we're talking about, zoning ordinance changes.
Well, no, I know, but, you know, you can, there are other means to go through these processes too.
But a developer
But
is not
elderly
gonna spend
housing-
$100,000 to engineer a project to put it before the board if it's not by right or wishy-washy, whether they're gonna get it through. It costs
The
a lot
zoning
of money.
board, you need a napkin.
True.
The truth.
But we prefer
Yes.
paper, but
All you need
they-
is a
but we don't
napkin.
have to
I don't
have
see that
master
as a
plans.
difficult problem, personally.
But the other
But
pro-
most of the elderly thing is gonna be some sort of not industrial necessarily, but certainly commercial event. And
Right.
it's commercial, it's zoned commercially up there, so,
And-
you know,
and
the
that was-
capability exists for that.
That was a question, cause in the, commercial district, it says,
Well, yeah, that's here,
it says,
downtown.
by special exception,
Yeah.
the zoning board of adjustment, other uses, yeah. Industrial and other uses utilizing the following criteria. So what are other uses? Is that residential?
No,
Is that-
strip mall.
Is an elderly
be
housing
anything.
complex, is that not residential? Is that a commercial? Where does that fit in the question
It's
of
what you propose.
what you call it? We're gonna call it Bob.
There are requirements for each zone, and if it falls outside of that, then you have to go to the zoning board to get yours addressed. And I don't wanna say it's simple, but I mean, it's a process, and
I think the biggest thing though, Chris, is we just haven't had anybody come before us saying, I want to put in an elderly housing. I'll tell you, it's, from what we've been seeing, the biggest thing seems to be they want to build $700,000-800,000 homes. They don't want to build elderly housing. The money isn't in it for them.
Right.
So we can put in a ordinance that says that elderly housing can come in, but unless you get a developer who comes before us saying that's what they want to do, it's not gonna get done.
So I just talked to a developer,
Oh, okay, so you're like just rolling that ball. Good.
I'm rolling it, well.
You are.
Because
No,
this is
open
what I do
conversation.
in my life, this is my.
We're on the right track. All of us, there is a housing crisis here in New Hampshire. All of us are affected by it.
Yeah.
And as a planning board, it might be up to us to try to solve that somewhat.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I enjoy the conversation, so I'm not,
Right.
you know, even though I disagree with it, I still enjoy it.
So there's all kinds of federal programs out there to throw money at to create affordable housing, below market rents, like the White Rock project in Bow with 120 units. They're renting, a unit for $1,000 a month for a brand new apartment for elderly. And, their market rates are like 1,900 for the same, thing, if they don't, so they have to have a certain percentage of people that qualify for that. And,
That's a 55-plus community, right?
that is, right. And it's a beautiful facility, it's an addition to the town, and, it brings in tax dollars, and, it does, like I said, in the town, the fire department and the ambulance people say, we have to go there a little bit more often than all the other houses, but they did add, they have a VNA on staff, and they have other services. I mean, in my, like, there's one in Londonderry that they just put in. It's not affordable, it's market rates, and they have a buy-in fee of $387,000 just to buy in, just to start renting, compared to.
That's not affordable housing.
It's not affordable, it's elderly, but, it's elderly for the elite that has a lot of money, not everybody does. A lot of people are on fixed social security income or pension, and, 20 years from now, when the rents are doubled again, they're gonna be in trouble.
I think this is a really great discussion and a great start to further discussion on a bunch of things. So a master plan update is something that we need to get to, and how do we do that where we can get the public's input on it? Because the guidance to remove residential from the commercial district came from the master plan, came from public input. Because that is our one kind of corridor where if we're gonna have commercial space, that was kind of the best space for it within the town. Otherwise, we're continuing to be a bedroom community, and it's gonna be tough, but I understand what your point is that some of those kind of are almost operating as a commercial entity, or bringing added revenue without, some of the extra costs, like school and things.
If the commercial people aren't knocking the doors down to build up there, what's up there? There's a concrete place, and, I don't even
The
know.
welding,
Huh?
welding.
Yeah.
We've seen more interest in the last few years. I mean, the problem is that site was in bankruptcy for over a decade, the longest bankruptcy case in the US history, I think it was. So it only has become in the last year or two where it's
Right.
been marketable to an actual degree, and it was transferred to private ownership outside of the bankruptcy proceedings. So, I mean, we've seen some stuff come before us because of it, and stuff fell through, so I think it's really gonna be.
Well, I did chat with the owner of that. And he does advocate for wanting multifamily housing there. He's all in. And I did chat with another owner of some property up there, and they said, we're all in, but only if it's by right. We don't wanna play the game. And the investor in Manchester that I've sold an absolute ton of stuff to, said, I said, he started just a few years ago, 140 units, he's built, he's up to 780 right now, and really kicking. And I called him, and he called me actually the other day and said, I need some more land to build on, what do you got, what can you find, dig it up. And I said, come out to Nottingham, he goes, that's what he said. You don't have town water and town sewer, and that's what you need to get the density, which got me thinking. And then I started looking at, like, well, here's Raymond, they got a bunch of apartment buildings, and here's one in Swansea, and here's one in Bow, and here's one here and there. And looking at these, and they don't have town water and sewer either.
They have town
So-
water.
Huh?
Raymond's got town water for most of it now, and that's a big thing where it's coming on for those bigger projects, I think, or they've extended the water line, to certain sections, so you're starting to see those 180.
Yeah, now they're having a fit
But
about
you know,
that.
Here's
That's,
the question is you have to even ask though, is that Nottingham spend the way it is whether what you're proposing, you know, even what you say about BOA brings $400,000, but that's still a money loser for the town. Affordable housing, when we put in, for even elderly housing, the town's still not gonna win.
Yeah, so that's a good question, because I'm wondering, we talk about, a lot about impact.
Sure.
And what's the impact on the town? What's it gonna cost? Where's that formula come from? Maybe Blair knows what that formula is.
Well, just think our recycling center is gonna get more impact, our police get more.
But by how
impact,
much?
our
What's the
fire get
number?
more. Well, it just depends how big how many houses go in.
15
It's not gonna go in
homes,
100.
15 homes going up off of Route 156. What's the impact there?
Negligible.
There's a balance, so there's always a balance with things, so, you know, there's studies that show probably, you know, for every, yes, there's tax revenue from houses, but for regular houses, but then there's gonna be a tipping point of, well, when do you need more services, when do you need to expand a school, when do you need to, you know, the new police department and things of that nature. So where is that tipping point? That's where our impact fees kind of help offset a little bit, but they're only as good as our, you know, as how we get there. So there's a lot of studies that show every dollar that's put in from a house, you know, it costs like $1.25 to service that house, whereas that land was 75 cents.
Right.
Because it had no services except for potentially a fire and.
Sure. And when you look at elderly housing, if it's gonna be 55 plus, not a big impact on the school,
Right, none, and that's 75% of our tax base.
right?
I mean, smaller units are also not gonna have a big impact either. You do one bedrooms, even smaller two bedrooms, you're not gonna get a lot of kids
Yeah. in
those. So if you know, plan for the right housing, it does have effect on what comes in.
But to Mr. Moran's point, again, it's, what does the town want? Not just developers and not just the state, even with the housing. So we have our duty within the town itself. Yes, we have our duty to the bigger picture of the state and trying to make sure we're doing our part to, try to mitigate some of the housing shortage and things of that nature. But whatever we propose, still, you know, it's up to the town as to whether they actually want it and the town is calling for it versus developers going for it.
So it's going on 9 o'clock. We still have to finish our agenda. What do we want to do about this? Do we want to bring it up again at the next meeting and maybe set a date for a public hearing?
For
To
the-
see if the public is interested in adding in, senior housing on Route 4? I mean,
You mean
If-
as
if-
a addition to our zoning ordinances to allow
Correct.
senior housing? Is that what you wanna
Correct.
say? Okay.
I would think it would
Can you
just be a
send a
further
copy of
discussion
that
by the
to
board
everybody?
before we even get to that point.
well, that's why I said, do we
you.
talk about it at our next
Yeah.
meeting?
I think
And then see.
we hold a separate workshop for the, when we get to the zoning amendments, or even before that, to start getting stuff lined up for zoning amendments, and that would be one of the discussion points, and I think it's, you know, again, a very valid discussion. There was a lot of input from everybody, and I think that's something we should continue on.
Okay.
Have we seen regulations, zoning ordinance regulations that specifically state senior housing?
I haven't, and that's what I was trying to remember, is if, I thought
It's
some of
not
that got
really
fought
a
back, because,
use.
you know,
It's not really a use. It's just someone comes in and proposes
a
it.
restriction.
Often there's higher density requirements, sometimes depending on the facility, lower parking, like in some of these, they say the average parking space for an elderly unit is 0.9 per unit.
Have you seen it as a use, in a use table, in a zoning ordinance?
I will find that.
Yeah, well, let's pin it, because I do want to get to,
Yeah.
the fees, because I think that's a very important one for
That
some of our
should have
things.
been
Sorry, yeah. So I pulled two examples, and I talked to the town of Litchfield's planner. I had a great discussion with her about, they've had these for years. Obviously, this was amended in 2012. The example that's here, their fee schedule, how has it worked? Have they run into any pushback from applicants, things like that? And it seems like it's been working very well. She said the biggest thing is obviously a little more admin time for the town with creating escrows. So I don't know if there's another way to do that, where you're not actually creating an escrow, but my guess, if you take a deposit, you have to create an escrow account. So this Litchfield and Wilton were two examples I was provided, that have these kind of fees and have had them for years and have been utilizing them. Wilton's is a little more detailed, Litchfield's is their fee schedule. So I think this is something we should discuss, everybody should think about, go through, try to pick out pros and cons of both, where do we wanna do it? Again, we've talked about shifting the cost of plans review and everything, more onto the applicant versus the town and the taxpayers that are here. Within reason, I think it's always something that, we don't wanna cost it out so much that every landowner can't do anything with their property, because it just becomes so cost prohibitive. But within reason, the major subdivisions, things of that nature, those are things where I think we should have, additional fees to cover, upfront, to cover some of our reviews. And their planners in SRPC does this for some other towns, will, when they do a plan review, will keep track of the hours and will submit like a invoice based on that specific plan. So it's not, I don't foresee it ever covering all of our contract with SRPC because of all the things that we're doing tonight and all these other planning pieces. But if we can shift 50% of the cost and potentially use that extra money that's there or within the budget to do these other items in more detail, lean on SRPC for the master plan updates and helping with those, or using some of that fee to somehow get the impact fees reviewed, and I think it's a win for the town if we can do it, well.
Where'd you find it? I didn't get to that.
On the town page.
So we had updated ours recently to try to bump up some of the costs to align more with other towns and make sure we weren't the cheapest. And as Mr. Moore had pointed out at the last meeting, we don't have to go by what other towns are doing, but it's always kind of helpful to make sure we're not so far out that we're just gonna get sued because we're egregious, but I think.
I think it's fair because, look at these, these plans we're getting in with 98 pages of wow, a lot of stuff. So we need the engineer reviews and we need the reviews from the letter that we just got today from experts in their respective fields that, if we don't have that expertise individually. I mean, we had Ian here with engineering expertise, but, it's gone.
Yep, and I don't match that. Not
Yeah,
by any
so,
stretch.
I don't think any of us do.
So, yeah, I think it's appropriate to have fees that cover the expenses that are borne by these applications, absolutely. And however that needs to be worded or worked out, that, you come to the town with a complicated plan and it's already cost them more for, they're gonna spend, this, one on, down here, we can't mention, I'm sure there's $80,000 of, design right there, so that's a little more for them to pay to have a review.
And I think Nottingham has been a fairly inexpensive town for them to develop, which is why we see so much of it. Because we don't have all of these added fees, so I think passing the buck on to the developer, as you said, we don't wanna make it so taxpayers can't, but they're not gonna come before us with these big subdivisions and stuff anyway.
Right.
It's going to be the developers who have the pockets.
Yeah, and we're always in that, that area where we still have land and we're half an hour to all these major hubs. So, we're in that.
We have a low tax rate.
A fairly low tax rate comparatively, yeah, so I'd like to move on these sooner than later.
Comparative.
So what I ask everybody is to please review these two examples. I'm a big fan of not recreating the wheel. I think if you can adopt something that somebody else has already spent their money on and is working, that's great, but we can obviously make them fit our town. I would like to get these on the potentially next agenda if we're, depending on how busy that night is. We can always put it on there and then table it if we get busy, to the
What are
next
your
meeting.
recommendations from, your conversations with a couple of the planners with regards to these fees that, we can act upon right now? If we see here's a update our schedule, let's update it and,
Well, we'd have to have a public hearing to actually adopt it and then push it to the select board for final approval, but again, creating the escrow, I think is good up front, and then laying out the cost per hour for the, planning staff, and including even the meeting hours, so it's not just Blair doing the initial review of the plans and going through all that document and creating the review letter for us, it's him being at the meeting for that specific part, for that hour that they're before us. Down to either 15-minute or half-hour increments, depending on how that works out, but,
This is gonna take some time
Yeah.
to go through these.
Yep.
And, you know, I've been looking at this for a couple of days now because it's, you know, in my world, it's a tax disguised as a fee. These are taxes, right? So if we're putting taxes on people, we wanna be accurate. Shouldn't be a profit center, right?
yeah, no, and like with, even with the escrow, if it's not utilized, it goes back to the applicant, it's
Right.
there,
But I
to make
think
sure
the-
we're not on the hook for the
Yeah.
cost afterwards.
The escrow, I think, would be, is definitely a game changer, because then, if the escrow's big enough or whatever amount is, it takes off any pressure for the town to fill up any money to cover costs. Because we can just automatically say, it's coming from you. If there's more mailings that have to go out, not town's responsibility, we're taking it out of your money.
Yeah,
You know, and then at the end of the game, if there's still $1,000 left or whatever we say, they're gonna get their money back. We're gonna give it to them. So we're not gonna make money, but we're gonna make sure we take the burden off any of this
That's
coming
reasonable.
from the town.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
That's
by
what I
when we
want.
do this.
Yeah.
That's how I wanna see these fees to go.
I
Yeah, I
can't-
don't think we should make it, you know, outrageous for anybody for the fees to
No.
make it.
Yeah, well, I can't see, do we do escrow here?
Not
only,
currently.
no.
Because I'm looking at Litchfield, they're at $10,000. Well, might be a good idea. It's $10,000 for, units, or lots, $5,000 if it's less than 3, $10,000 for lots more than 3, greater than 3. And excavation, you're gonna do an excavation, there's a $10,000 escrow. Why not? And if we'll use it up, we'll use it to service the project, and when we're done, we give them back the balance. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yep. Yep.
It's the upfront cost of doing business to make money.
And it makes it pretty clear, so, and again, I would assume that our SRPC planning hours are gonna, the cost is gonna increase per hour. Now we're not dues paying members after July 1st. So we were getting a decreased rate from being dues paying members for what our planning hours cost us, so, because we're no longer, that'll shift. But part of my discussion with the town administrator that I would like to have and SRPC is to potentially update the verbiage in our contract to make sure it encompasses more, so it allows us to do more with our funds, our budget, you know, to lean on them if it's master plan update, or maybe we can contract out the impact fee updates with them, things like that, to make sure that the contract language is sufficient, that,
So are we totally dead in the water with the SRPC dues? I mean, when it's done?
it's out of the budget, yeah. Yeah.
You know, we can't
But the contract
we can't
year-
come up with a new fee, or, you know?
Well, I don't think so. I don't think from that, but it's, because we had it as a budget item, it was taken off. I don't think we can, expend money on it, but I don't know if I don't know if that's true, but I can follow up on that, with town administrator, if we do find additional funds within our own budget. So that's something I propose, everybody just kind of take a look at, our revised schedule. Again, if we can keep it, I like keeping it pretty simple. Wilton's, I think, is great, but you get into multiple pages, and I think it makes it kind of,
I'd love to get a copy of that. Do you have some printed copies?
No, but I can print them for you
That would be terrific.
anytime, yeah.
so I think we could compare that to the, like, Litchfield, and somehow incorporate a little bit of that and hybridize it. I think that'd be a
Why
good
don't you
thing.
just send it to us?
Is that posted on our website anyway?
Yeah,
Okay. Is it just on forms and documents, it's already up?
It's in applications, and it's also on the left-hand side of the planning board page.
Well, I can print it myself then. I can go there.
I've seen it, so, yeah.
Yeah,
That's why I mentioned.
and I'll add it to my book.
It might be under, notice of land use board fees, so like, maybe it doesn't just say fees, it might say
Yeah.
that whole RSA
yeah.
was a
It's on the
requirement.
left tree. I'm trying the planning board page.
Yeah.
Go down,
I know I've seen it.
So that's that, but again, I think the sooner we can act on that, again, and potentially even include the cost of mailing stuff to the board members.
When
be
do
good.
you wanna act on that?
I would like to potentially,
This is something that I
next,
even on the board, select board now, we have a discussion.
Mm-hmm.
We should have a date where we're gonna say, here it is.
yeah, so
Next action plan.
our next meeting, May 8th, I'd like to address, this is gonna be an agenda item.
That's what I want.
So as long as
Perfect.
that meeting doesn't become too long, I don't want to keep anybody here till 10, 11. But depending on what happens on that meeting, I would like to address it that meeting or at latest the second meeting in May. But as long as we put it on the agenda, review of land use
Fees.
board fees. We cover ourselves and then we could potentially get something adopted and, it's off to the select board for.
And these fees would be implemented as soon as you guys approve them, and it would be for everything current and going forward, correct?
Only
I mean, like,
new.
we wouldn't go,
Only new, yeah, anything new.
but mailers for anything that's current should still be included in it, the fees. So
Yeah, I don't think it'll work.
why?
It'll
Why
only
would that
going
not
forward.
be?
But
Right, but even for a current case,
But they already signed on a date,
No, I see what you're
that
saying.
this is all the regulations that I'm going by.
Yeah.
That includes fees.
okay, that I didn't know.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
That I didn't know.
Right, when the application gets accepted by the board, that kind of like sets in stone the date at which all the regulations that bind that site review and subdivision review and everything.
and if you had the wrong fees posted, if we had this old schedule posted, and even though we adopted these, the applicant would pay those.
Okay.
That's not wrong.
No,
I
he's
said
saying
if
if.
it was, say we, I'm saying, say we adopted new fees, but we didn't post it.
She's like, what?
Like, wait.
She's listening.
All right,
but also, on the town fee schedule,
Yep.
there's a bunch of planning board approval fees and everything else that are dated February 12th, 2018, that don't match that. So that's what I got, and I went,
That might be wrong.
you guys just changed it, and, or you did it a while ago, but
on like applications, you mean, or?
on you guys. Yeah, zoning board, road construction,
I think that anytime you get into websites, it gets tricky, because I think that's what happens, is things aren't linked to each other, and they end up nebulous.
I typed in fees.
Yeah. How did you find that? No, just kidding.
Yeah, well, I just found that one now, so I know where to go.
All right, so I'm gonna move on, because again, I don't wanna keep this meeting too long tonight, everybody's been pretty, we've had some pretty long meetings, so. Before I close the other non-business out, does anybody else have anything that we haven't touched upon? So I think our action items right now are, we're gonna continue to keep these items on the next couple of agendas. That'll give chance for any members that are gonna attend, like the Art of Road to Travel or the Office of Planning and Development conference and things like that, to come back with some more information, and then we can game plan for actually getting through some of those items. And we'll have the fee updates on the next agenda, definitely is a public hearing.
And working on the
Discuss.
impact fees, you said.
That's something we've got to get to, but it's gonna be further discussion with how do we get there? Because we don't have any funds in the budget, and it's not really advised for the boards to do their own reviews to justify those.
What can you say about past impact fees and how they've been used and received and worked, and has everyone been happy with paying these and getting their money's worth?
My vote is delete them. They've only been a pain in the ass.
Well,
They never go back to the right people.
The fire was easy, because there was a bond specific for it, so the fire was an easier one, because there was an expenditure, and it went right towards that. The school has been iffier, because it's built on, some expansion plans that have been tabled or voted down over time, so that's been used for studies and things like that,
Amounted
for
to
the
nothing.
school. So, the newer one, the recreation, that's got a very specific item, and I believe those have been expended a couple of times.
Yep.
And,
That's it right now.
yeah, so except for the school, I think they've been well utilized, and that's not a fault of the school, I don't mean it by that, it just.
But the enrollment's down, so, you know,
That's it.
that's, I think that's hard to say, hey, we're.
Well, the hard part is that it's so regulated as to what it can be
What
used
you
for.
can
Right.
That the school was, they kind of had their hands tied for
Okay.
what they wanted to be able to use them for. Because they came before us several times.
Sure, want to fix the gym roof, couldn't do it, want to fix AC, can't do it.
Want to do an addition, well, you can't do it with these funds to look at it, and so it just was, it's been really crazy.
Is that all in the zoning, or where is the impact fees?
The,
This tells you what you can and can't do.
All right, but where is it in our
It's in,
rules?
it's in zoning, I
zoning,
believe,
okay.
yeah.
so,
So they,
I'm sure I read it, but, 'cause
and there
I've read
may
the
be,
zoning
and that might even be
ordinance
something
back.
that we, amend, do we adopt additional ones, or do we amend the language that's included in there? So like the fire department was specific to the bond, so potentially it should be zeroed out, because that's been paid off. So does it get amended for apparatus, if there's something in the CIP that the fire department is looking to add a new vehicle, for example, in addition to their other fleet, because of the increased demand of
Exactly.
development and things of that nature? That would be potentially allowable for impact fees to be utilized for. Because it's an addition to, it's not a replacement of existing, it's saying, okay, we're seeing this development and we're expecting, 50 more houses in the next 5 years. We're gonna need an additional unit to account for that.
And manpower.
We proposed, this board was, I'm trying to think back, Syntax Fee's been around, I know it's part of it, but I can't remember how we did it. That's sad, I know. Were we the one as a board to put the warrant article forward for the proposal of having impact fees?
yes,
Yeah, first, that's the first
So
step, yeah, the
could
town
we
has
as
to
a board
vote.
vote to put a warrant article to
yes,
kill the impact fees?
yes.
Why would we wanna do that?
I'm just,
There's an impact.
I'm just, I'm
Understand.
sure there's gonna, they're
Want to
gonna.
have a discussion about that?
Probably not
now.
tonight.
Not now.
Yes.
Not now.
We can have that discussion.
But I mean,
Well, the other thing, though, I think we really need to look at some point, and again, not tonight, because I really think we need to accept minutes and go home. But what are the departments looking at for impacts, and do they see a need for a fee? Because it's one thing for us to say, we're collecting them for this and for that, but what is it, because I actually spoke to a couple of department heads and said, we're looking at impact fees. What is it you think you need for your department that's related to the growth of our town? Do you see it as needing more vehicles? Do you see it as needing a larger building? What do you see? And they all looked at me like I had 5 heads, because they don't seem to understand that this is out there for them as a resource, and they still haven't come before either the select board or us with anything when I asked them to do that. And this was back at the election in last
Teresa, back when
March,
that
April.
subdivision went in for 104 house lots, 5,000, I went to the school board twice, 6 months apart, and asked them what the impact would be on the school system of 104 lots. They said flat out, none.
Okay,
There you go. And so when you do these impact fees, you have to go to those departments to get the specifics,
right.
okay? And if they're not gonna provide you that, you're not really gonna go anywhere. So somebody has to be a go-getter, and we did have that in town, that was a go-getter, that felt that impact fees was the way to go because it was a worthwhile process to go through. But you have to build something in order for the fees to have any use. And the fees themselves collectively don't pay for an awful lot. And it's unfortunate the way it works. It's kind of a great concept, but no developer should be paying the full cost of their impact to the town, because you can't measure it. So, and the people that pay are the people that buy the homes.
Right, because they're absorbing that cost of the fees.
And then when the fees come back, if they're not used, they go to the present owner of the house,
Correct, whether or not they were
not to
the
the
original
people that
ones.
paid it.
Right.
It's not good.
One other option that you have is, you've been talking about not having public services like water or sewer, is looking at what would it take to do public service, public water, public sewer, for at least a small area of the community, where you might want to encourage denser development. Because if you have the public sewer, for example, you wouldn't need the septic system. So it might be an area where you do a village district and, look at something like a smaller treatment facility or something like that. Or a shared treatment facility.
I can't see the impact of that.
All the other communities deal with impact fees.
It's everything that you've all discussed. It's all.
So they all do it.
Oh, I can't say for sure that they all do it. I'm just saying the way they deal with it is that they deal with it based on the very strict guidelines that the state has set. The courts have ruled on and stuff. So there's.
And that'll be in here.
Yeah, I mean, that's gonna give you some guardrails, but it's gonna be a lot of legalese.
Yeah.
So.
But again, going back to the planning side of us, so planning for future growth and development and things of that nature and the future impacts of that, we understand, sometimes it's cart before the horse. So yes, the police department needs to get an additional cruiser, the fire department needs an additional fire or expansion because they're anticipating this additional need. So it's, as Mr. Stebbins pointed out, it's not 100%, but it's a piece of it because then every future resident is getting the benefit of all the costs that everybody that's currently here are paying. So we're investing in this infrastructure to take care of the community and potentially have that expansion. They're getting the benefit of it. So I guess you can look at it as kind of like a tax that was going to account for why they're even coming to our town. It's because we have these things here now for them.
Right. Yeah, and we gotta be careful. I mean, they got sewer in Epping. How's that working out for them?
Yeah.
It isn't.
It's a disaster.
Well, they're on a major river too, and we got a bunch of rivers going each,
Well, what are you saying?
you can't.
Straight pipe to
put-
the river? What?
Well, where the flatlands are, okay, where you typically have the reservoir for,
Yeah.
where do you put that?
Ah.
On the mountains and the
Yeah,
ledge? No.
It goes in the big tank. I don't know.
It,
All
All
right.
right.
Well,
there's a water district next door here, in case you didn't know. Camelot Court has its own water district.
I didn't know that.
Single well. When the power goes out, nobody's got water.
Sure.
And the units up on, the 24 units up on, Route 4, the condos, those, had 2 community wells.
Yeah.
They can go on 9 units per well. So they did, two wells, feed 6 units each. Cost about $6,000 per unit, by the way, in case anybody was curious. The same developer is doing a project in Barrington with 76 units, and he said his community well is costing about $400,000 for 76 units. So, same, multiply the cost, it's $6,000 per unit again, same thing. Cheaper than a.
All right,
one
so,
well.
can I move to approve the minutes of Wednesday, April 10th, 2024 as written?
I just have one minor change. Others present, Benjamin McMahon isn't listed and
You must not have signed the,
I didn't.
Oh, he wasn't listed, okay.
Some more.
all right, so I move to approve the April 10th minutes as amended.
I second that motion.
So it's a motion by Mrs. Bascom, a second by Mr. Stevens to approve the minutes of April 10th, 2024 as amended. Any further discussion from the board? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? No. Motion carries 7-0. There's nobody here for public comment tonight. The select board, staff board member updates will go around the table quickly for everyone. Mr. Davies?
All set. Good.
Mr. Evans?
Quick dumb question, sorry, everybody. Acceptance of plans. I've been studying and reading this and seeing that, and I have a subdivision going on in Manchester right now, and the plan's been there since February, and it's not accepted yet, because they are going through it with the fine tooth comb before they start their clock ticking. And it seems to me that we accept plans here when they come in, as complete, and is that, a good idea, such as one that's how, there that we just got a letter on, and there's engineering, and there's all kinds of stuff going on, should that be accepted, or should that just?
They're reviewed before we accept them.
Well, there's a difference between acceptance and approval, so to be accepted as complete, it just has to go through our checklist and up to the board as to whether we find that what's been presented to us is sufficient enough for us to take purview of that application.
Right.
For those engineering reviews and things like that, we can't even send those out unless we've accepted it as complete, so we can't,
Okay,
we can't,
thank you.
that's my understanding of it, that's, same thing, we can't necessarily, even get into the deeper conversation or send it out to certain other areas without first taking ownership of it in that way. So I'd be surprised that they're allowed to, and it's RSA, it gives you very strict timeline on just accepting it, taking action on acceptance.
Well, like if you have a complicated, conservation type of matter, I mean, that may be a while to resolve. I mean, what do you accept that plan and then just keep stalling the, when somebody comes in here on May 8th, what are we gonna be saying? Hey, we're moving to,
So I think every board handles that a little bit differently, within, I think we always try to be reasonable with things, and then there's things that we can condition approval, so if things are approved, so for example, I'm thinking of, the, Route 4 of the condos, for example, there's covenants and HOA documents and bylaws and things like that that have to get approved, but to get all that at the time of application is generally will never happen.
Yeah.
It's usually, same thing with state permits and things of that nature, some stuff moves along in line with our process. So, there's never one clear-cut answer to that, it's a matter of, when's it reasonable, because we have a sunset clause on our approvals, our conditional approvals are a year, so to have a year to get it back to us, we can change that through the
so on
motion.
an HOA, for like, Fort Hill had an HOA in there. I don't know, has that been sent to town attorneys for review and?
I can't remember if we got that yet.
Submitted
Yeah.
it yet.
And then that gets sent in and the town attorney reviews, but do they pay for that? Attorney's review, who's paying for that? Is it-
Question.
They should, but I don't know if we've ever got billed back.
We don't charge, we
Case.
haven't,
Yeah.
since I've been here, we do not charge that.
Well,
There's something to change.
there's
So, correct, technically, that's.
Put that down.
that's
budget
cost,
keeper
I-
here.
Right.
Put that down.
Do we have more public comment? Did we do public comment?
I skipped it.
Oh, okay.
Did you have, was there something?
No, no.
Oh, okay. There was nobody here, so.
Thank you, thank you.
What's the update on the score?
What?
What's the update on the score?
Yeah, it's 1-1 last
All
time.
right, let's go here.
We got our new playground set out there, just installed, back should be spread, should be ready to go.
Good.
And we don't have our next meeting until the 7th yet. Front looks good too. It was done by the Eagle Scout project for the trees, the 4 trees out front in the new bark monster area. And our next meeting for the select board is the 6th. We've actually have almost 3 weeks off, which is weird.
You're gonna be bored.
Oh no,
Keep them busy.
not quite there, but still plenty of reading.
Come meddle onto the other boards.
Well, and, for budget, we just set at the budget meeting. That was something, if you guys didn't if you didn't know about that.
Yeah.
I was, selected as the board of selectmen member as the alternate member, whatever on there. And we voted in, we have a full board. It was nice to see all the volunteers, and I thank you guys all here for volunteering, to come on this board. You have that glimmer of, when you see there, you say, oh crap, no one signed up, and this, and then, look at us, we have a full board,
I
which
know,
is
it's
wonderful. And that just happened again on the select
Well,
board.
we can thank Teresa for that. She recruited us.
Perfect, thank you, Teresa.
You're welcome.
But again, it was nice to
Thank
see
you.
that all the people that showed up to be in the budget and that people volunteered to fill in the spots for the budget. It was just good to see that, as you think that people aren't getting involved, they are. Which is a really good sign for the health of the town, that, people want to be interactive in what's going on, so I was really happy to be there. So we did select somebody though.
Thank you. Mrs. Bascom?
All said, I told you. already. That's-
Another item,
Exciting at the zoning board at all?
No, we actually don't have a meeting next month, right?
You know,
Correct.
nothing on the agenda? Okay.
another item that'll probably be on our next agenda is, Mrs. Smith, tendered her resignation, I believe, for her SRPC commissioner role. I don't know if we have to actually take action on that or not, because technically it's the select board that makes the final, authority over to it, but,
SRPC, somebody did write to, somebody in the office, and she sent it to me, and she just wanted confirmation that she was no longer on a commissioner of the SRPC.
Sure.
Whatever the position was.
Yeah.
And I said, yes, she is no longer on that and not on the planning board.
that was Miss Anderson, and then I
Yes,
think Miss
Ms.
Smith
Anderson.
was the other one that was on there
Oh,
as
no,
well.
I'm sorry.
And then you
Yeah,
were
maybe I'm getting
an
it
alternate, which-
confused.
I was an alternate, correct.
so we'll have to have another discussion on that, first to see if Mrs. Baskin wants to be a full member instead of an alternate, for that commissioner role, and then if there's anybody else to nominate, that maybe want to come from that. It doesn't have to come from the planning board. Oftentimes they lean on the planning board because of the functions that are served, but ultimately, again, it's the select board that, makes the final, sign off and recommendation to the SRPC.
Yeah, because that, just to clarify on that point, or to bring that home, Charlene was on the planning board, but Cheryl Smith was not. She was a Conservation Commission member. so-
Okay,
Nothing from me.
let's land this plane.
All right,
I'm good, thank you.
that's it?
Yeah.
Lana? All right.
Move to
We got
adjourn.
a week off or so, everybody.
Oh, I guess we do have.
And we have Mylars to sign over there, so that's it. Thank you, everybody. We're adjourned. It's 9:21.
Yay, thank you.